Zane Smith will be returning to the Cup Series in 2025, while it sounds like Corey LaJoie might be out. A 65-year-old driver will attempt the Daytona 500, and Kurt Busch talks racing in 2025. Welcome back into the Breaking Bob channel. Happy New Year 2025. I'm excited to grow this channel further. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We're always talking NASCAR and racing on a daily basis, and today's video is loaded with news. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. The final dominoes for the driver lineup in the NASCAR Cup Series for 2025 sounds like they're about to fall. Zane Smith did confirm today with FRM that he will be joining the 38 team full-time for 2025 with Front Row Motorsports. Now, Zane Smith joins Todd Gilliland and Noah Gragson in that trio of lineups for FRM. They did confirm that third charter from SHR did sell and was confirmed by NASCAR. So a young driver lineup in their mid-20s, all of them, but something to watch as they develop. This is a multi-year contract for Zane Smith, the California native. He rejoins Front Row Motorsports. He was the 2022 Truck Series champion for FRM. He also did get a few Cup starts in 2023. They pulled the rug from Todd Gilliland's full-time status late in the offseason, giving Zane Smith a few drives in the 2023 season in that 38 car. Although Todd Gilliland won the eventual war and got that 38 seat full-time for 2024 and beyond, he'll jump into that 34 car, though, for Michael McDowell as he leaves for Spire. And Zane Smith makes his return to FRM after previously a development driver for Trackhouse loaned out to Spire Motorsports in that 71 car. Trackhouse, of course, chose SVG in that third charter over Zane Smith, who had a tough start to the 2024 season, but figured it out halfway through, and really, after he was let go by Trackhouse, was running very well in that Spire 71. I know there was some bad blood, it sounded like, with Ford and Zane Smith, the way they left on terms originally, but it seems like this was just a no-brainer with this position open in that 38 car. So Zane Smith will join the ranks of Front Row Motorsports back home. He makes his return to the Ford camp in 2025 in a multi-year deal. And with Rick Ware Racing, the final domino to fall in the driver lineup, it sounds like Corey LaJoie won't be returning to that 51 after all, as Bob Pockris reports. Cody Ware will take the 51, it sounds like, so Corey LaJoie still looking for a ride in 2025. I hate to float it, but LaJoie is very good in the media, and with NASCAR adding multiple new TV partners, could this be the moment we see Corey LaJoie maybe transition into that camera role instead of on track? You've seen with guys like Parker Kligerman, Reagan Smith in the past. Corey LaJoie, obviously, with his Stacking Pennies podcast that is partnered with NASCAR, he is really good with the media and on camera. I wouldn't mind seeing him at least stay in the garage one way or another if he can't find a ride in 2025. But it sounds like Corey LaJoie out for the Cup Series, at least full-time in 2025, while Zane Smith stays on in the Cup Series. Let me know your thoughts about that domino effect down below. As the clash looms, that means Daytona Speed Weeks is near as well, and we know our fourth open entry car of the 2025 Daytona 500. NY Racing's JJ Yaley, Live Fast with BJ McLeod, and Jimmy Johnson with Legacy Motorsports have all been confirmed as entries in the Daytona 500, and MBM Motorsports' number 66 Mustang entry will be joining them, with 65-year-old Mike Wallace, brother of Kenny and Rusty. He'll be back in the NASCAR Cup Series for the first time since 2015. Mike Wallace did have Xfinity starts in 2020 as well, over 800 career starts in all NASCAR series combined, so he has no lack of experience, but hasn't raced in the next-gen car, hasn't raced in the Cup Series in almost a decade. 65 years old, attempting the Daytona 500. Age is just a number. Like I said, with him being a famous family, brothers Kenny and Rusty, Mike Wallace is no slouch to the NASCAR world, but haven't seen something like this in a while. I mean, Derek Cope, I guess, ran in the 2021 Daytona 500, but Mike Wallace running in the 2025 Daytona 500 was not something I had on my bingo card, but alas, here we are. Could you imagine if somehow Mike Wallace pulled out a top 10 in this race? It would be an incredible story. I know the equipment hasn't been great, but Mike Wallace has been known in his career for being a super speedway guy and getting the most out of slow cars. I do think back to that entry in 2009 that he piloted for the 500. So it's definitely an interesting wrinkle to the Daytona 500. Not something I expected, but let me know your thoughts down below. Who else do you think is going to enter in the Daytona 500? Bobby Labonte, Maybe Kyle Petty will try and race his way in at this point. Nothing shocks me anymore in the NASCAR world. And finally, an update on former Cup Series champion Kurt Busch that I think kind of got swept under the radar as the holiday and off-season got going. Racer.com's Eric Johnson had an article in December that talked about Kurt Busch's championship 20 years later, but also detailed his career and what he's been up to lately. In the article, Busch talks about his recovery from his crash in Pocono in qualifying in 2022 that ended his career with a massive concussion. Quote, I'm feeling much, much better since the summer wreck in 22 and all the different physical therapy, different neurological visits. It was taxing for a while. Basically, every other day it was a doctor visit somewhere and going to get a hearing checked, eyes checked, balance checked. The vestibular movements were what was greatly affected. I still feel the lingering effects, but it has been calmed down and it has been through all the physical therapy and all the great doctors who have helped me. So it's a very scary symptoms there, especially those vestibular movements. That is no joke. I'm glad to see Kurt Busch is doing better in that long recovery since that nasty wreck there. And we might even see him on track, apparently. He's at least pushing for it. Quote, right now for 2025, I'm still endorsed with Monster Energy. I'm hopeful to get a light-duty type of clearance to race with my neurologist, which would then open up some opportunity for me. Whether it's late model races or I was invited to Race of Champions, which will be held in Sydney in 2025, I'd love to go and represent the USA. This would give me an opportunity to go back for my third time. That would be a great story to have Kurt Busch return to racing in a exhibition race that still has a little bit of meaning with country pride on the line. And for Kurt Busch, whether it's Cars Tour, like you said, late model, just some form, just for him to scratch that itch. The way his career was ended abruptly, you want somebody like Kurt Busch, who's a future Hall of Famer, a NASCAR champion, to go out on his terms. That being said, there is still a long way to go. Busch says, quote, I still have to get through some more steps with the neurology. I still need to push my doctors to get that approval. And then too, you can't just jump back in and go ride like a bull rider. If you get hurt, you don't go jump back in and ride the biggest bull, right? You go start with the little guy and work your way up. So go-karting, driving with friends, racing schools, using some of my brother's race cars that are current, that would be the way to really step it back up and then just see what 2025 can bring behind the wheel. We just have to keep it realistic and we have to keep it one step at a time. Keep it realistic is the main key there. We all would love to see Kurt Busch jump back into the NASCAR Cup Series and race for a Daytona 500 opportunity, someone like a Mike Wallace, but Kurt Busch has different circumstances. He has long-term health to consider there. And so, like he said, go-karting, maybe some late model races. The Cars Tour Dale Jr. operates. I know they'd love to have him for a one-off or two if he was cleared. But for Kurt Busch, quality of life is the biggest thing. I love to see him still trying to get back out there, even if he's pushing his doctors harder than he probably should be. But racers just they can't quit, and I love that about the sport. It's something that even earlier, like I said with Mike Wallace, 65 years old, the fact that he can go out there and still race for a Daytona 500, whether he's competitive or not, those guys never seem to have that dream completely die. So for Kurt Busch, I'd love to see him out there in the NASCAR Cup Series one day. Don't fully expect it, but let me know your thoughts down below about what we've covered today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button here at Breaking Bob. Helps me out a ton if you like this video as well, if you like what you saw. I'll be back for more content as the 2025 year gets going here. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you soon. Stay tuned for more.